Hello, this is Morris Washington from MTC Media. We're going around the DMV here at MTC Media talking to different uh, assistant coaches at some of the bigger universities. And our first installment of our series of interviews with assistant coaches start with Coach Battle over there at Georgetown and some of the challenges it is when you have to build a program from the ashes. We also talk a little recruiting and other things having to do with coaching. So, Coach, I wanted to start off with just asking you about the challenges of building a program in the transfer portal era, as opposed to building a program like when y'all first got to Providence, where you didn't have as much movement as we have today.
Well, it's challenging for sure, but it also makes it easier to turn over a roster, you know what I mean, in terms of adding to what you need and getting an opportunity to kind of not pick and choose, but kind of pick what you want, what pieces you need to get to. The part that becomes interesting is when you have to do your DNA check on the young man or the people that you're trying to get that were in the portal. Obviously, they're players, and what they do as players, you watch the clips, you watch film, you do that, but you don't know what's really inside of them, what they want out of it, make sure it matches what you're trying to do too. So it has to be the right fit, is what I'm saying in a long-winded way as well. So it becomes challenging, but it's something that you have to do now. It is what it is with the times.
And, with the COVID exemptions finally getting out of rotation in a couple of years, do you think that will impact on the number of kids that are in the portal? Do you think that will reduce, or do you think it just won't have an impact at all?
I don't think it will. I think you're always going to have kids who are looking for different situations, and a lot of times it's playing time. It could be style of play. It could be a new coaching change. It could be a lot of variables that go into it. So I don't see that change. The number may decrease a little, but I think it's something that's going to be here that you're dealing with on a consistent basis.
And just shifting to this season, what is your impression so far of this season? I know there's been challenges. There have been some very close games that you can probably think in your mind, we should have won those, but just what was your impression before the season compared to what's your impression now?
Well, I think before the season, we were still trying to get to know them as players, the new guys that were coming in, obviously getting the job when we got it, the guys that we added through the portal, the transfers, getting to know them, getting to see how they would fit into our culture that we're trying to build here and establish at Georgetown. So it was more of a get trial and error, trying to see and that kind of thing, feeling each other out. But as the season's gone along, we've kind of played enough games now to know that what we're trying to do and how we have to get better, and we're still building towards that.
So I know in the past you worked with Skip Prosser at Xavier, I believe, and then at Wake.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what was it like with Skip? I know he had a great reputation as a coach, but what was kind of like a day with Skip? What was that like?
Well, he's my mentor. He's everything that I do, even to this day, is based on what he taught me when I got into the business. And so a typical day with him is he was a people's person. So he taught everybody, had a way of making everybody feel important. And anybody, from the workers in the cafeteria to the people in the athletic department, he treated everybody the same. And so that kind of trickled down to the way I carry myself, the way I do things, whether it's with the players, whether it's with the people I work with, our current staff, and what have you. But it was just, every day was a learning thing. He was a very bright man, very witty, smart. So I learned a ton from him, just being around him on a daily basis.
So when I've come in here, I've seen you working with players individually. Just talk about the process of player development and how you identify what they need to work on, but also identify what they need to work on within the constructs of the system that you all are running.
Yeah, it's twofold. Like in the off season, you want to develop, work on guys' weaknesses, what they want to get, what they need to get better at, in terms of whether it's shooting, whether it's ball handling, what have you. But during the season, it's more working on what we need them to do to be successful within our system. And so it's more precise, if you will. These are where you're going to get your shots from. So let's actually work on those particular areas where we know it's going to be beneficial to you, obviously, but also to us in terms of what we're trying to do as a team.
Do you think that players coming in today, and I'm talking about the high school players, Do you think they're more or less prepared based on the fact that now everyone seems to fancy themselves as a trainer? And so sometimes they come in with bad habits. Just compared to when you first got into coaching, how prepared are those guys when they come in?
Well, I think they're prepared in terms of competition a little bit more because they play so much. They all know each other, so there's no intimidation factor. They've played AAU ball all over the country. They've traveled. They all know each other pretty much on the circuit, and whatever level you are, they've come across each other's path. So when they get here, it's not like, hey, I got to play against that guy for the first time. I know him. I played against him in AAU. So from that standpoint, it's a little bit different. But in terms of the development, I think, when I grew up and I played, I didn't have a personal trainer. I did everything on my own. I was old school. That has definitely changed, but I mean, I'm old, so you got to keep up with that. But I don't think it's that big of an adjustment. I think when you get them, you kind of have enough time to work with them and get them to understand what you're trying to do with them in terms of their development.
And in the recruiting process, it just seems like now, because of the shoe circus, which obviously did exist when I was around at that age, compared to high school, as a coach, how do you take what they're doing when you evaluate them on the high school level and what they're doing when you evaluate them if they're on EYBL or one of the other circuits?
Yeah, that's one of the things that Coach Prosser told me. He said, Jeff, when you evaluate kids, you want to see them at every venue that you can. You want to see them in a high school practice, a setting with their high school team because they're more comfortable there, how they react to coaching, being coached, being taught. Also see them in an AAU situation, just based on how they free flow and play with other good players. So you want to try to see them and obviously play with their high school team as well. So you want to get a more evaluation of them as you can, and just seeing them in different venues because kids play different. If I'm the guy on my high school team, I'm going to get more, shots or whatever. I'm more comfortable as opposed to playing with some AAU guys who might not know me as well, and I might not look as well. So you got to make sure you watch them in different types of venues to get the best evaluation that you can.
How do you balance where you visit during the summer? Because I know you have the three main circuits with UAA, 3SSB, and EYBL, but now two more are popping up with May Hoops and Pumas jumping into the game. You guys can't be everywhere during the live period. How do you determine what's worth it and worth your time to the program or where you are?
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't be everywhere, and so you have to prioritize it. I think we do a good job of honing in on the guys that we really want to see, who we're really interested in and who are interested in us. So you want it both ways. You want someone that really wants what you stand for as well. So we kind of narrow it down to getting the most bang for our buck. Where are the most kids that we're recruiting? Where are they going to be? And so, we'll see the other guys if we can at the other events, but for the most part, we're going to always go to where the bulk of the guys that we have prioritized are going to be at.
Is there a way to get out the message when you're out there recruiting that, especially if you're on the upper level of those circuits, that you don't need to average 20 points a game, that you guys are looking more at transferable skill than at numbers? How does that message get out so you could probably see better basketball and get a truer evaluation?
Yeah, it's hard, because kids are kids. They want to try to impress. So sometimes they may go out of their way to try to show they can do something, or somebody may have got to them and say, hey, look, you need to shoot more if you want somebody to look at you, whatever, and it kind of hurts their recruitment. I think what I do is I kind of look at it positionally. If I'm looking for a point guard, I kind of know what I'm looking for. So if a kid is playing a certain way at that position, I can kind of, from doing it so long, say, okay, this not going to work, or this will work. And then, I like having open, honest conversations with kids that I'm recruiting. Like, this is what you need to do. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I think could help your game. It's not just a recruiting pitch all the time. It's also trying to help the young man develop and, get where he wants to be at the end of the day. So I'm not afraid to have those conversations, evaluating the guys when I'm talking to them and watching them play. This is what I see. Obviously, your shot volume is way too high. You need to guard somebody, or you need to, this is what needs to be done. And a lot of kids, believe it or not, they appreciate that. Like, Coach, I appreciate that, whatever. So I've always done it that way.
I find that the kids appreciate it more than the parents do.
I ain't say nothing about the parents.
Right. and you know, if you go back to when you were a player at Marshall, what is it about the style of play and how the game was played back then compared to now that you like, and what are some of the things that you don't like?
Well, I think today guys are way more athletic. You know, everybody can handle the ball, everybody can shoot. Back when I played, there was, you know, traditionally you had your point guard and your two guard. They did most of the ball handling. And, you know, bigs ran to the block, they posted, and they played inside out, you know, not as much out as they do now, shooting threes and that kind of thing. So it was a little more controlled basketball back when I played. But now, like I said earlier, the skill level is just so good now. Everybody can do everything. And, you know, it's almost positionless basketball now. And so that wasn't heard of, you know, as much back when I played back in Marshall.
And do you think that was influenced a lot by the international game as basketball has become more global, especially from about the 90s on? Do you think that's influenced on how now we play basketball in America?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You look at the number of, you know, overseas talent that is incorporated into the NBA now at the highest level. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. And so, but I've just been impressed with just the overall skill level now that these guys have. You know, it's unbelievable.
When you were a player, who was the toughest player that you felt like you played against?
Man, I mean, it's been so long ago. I played against a lot of good players. Ironically, I think it was my junior year, we played Georgetown in Vegas. And so I remember playing against Patrick Ewing, actually, and I was just blown away how big he was. I think I might have came up to his waist. And I'm like, man, this dude's big. But I remember playing Georgetown. I think we played him in a tournament in Vegas. So that might have been the year they won the national championship too, I think. So that was pretty cool.